why has it been so difficult to stop this threat? And hasn't ransomware been around forever? I mean, it seems like it's been around for many years.
Yeah.
What's so different about the latest versions of it?
So, a couple of things here. First of all, yes, ransomware has a long history, in fact, and in some ways it's no more difficult to stop than some of the other types of attack, such as a credential stealing attack or a botnet infection to carry out spam attacks and so on. It's just very popular right now, and early attempts had been somewhat effective. Early ransomware would kind of lock up your computer and demand money. What ransomware today, and certainly WannaCry and WannaCrypta are doing, is encrypting files on the machine when they get there and using a secret key which they will disclose to the victim for money. And so for a certain kind of criminal thinking, this is instant gratification. You don't have to steal information and sell it on a black market and so on. You can just get money directly from the victim. And I think, that's why it's happening. Also, there's been a lot of work in the dark markets to build this kind of attack as a service, so you can cheaply rent your own ransomware as a service project and get into crime that way. To bring this back, though, to what Alexei was saying about the 0 days and then the fact that, WannaCrypta was exploiting with something which had been patched, it is possible to reduce considerably the chances of getting infected. And I came up with what I call the 4 Ps, which is a little bit corny, but patching is the number one thing, because we earlier talked about what we see with forensics. So often we see that the breach of the system occurred because something for which a patch existed hadn't been patched. And then protect. There's been a lot of discussion lately about which endpoint protection products work and which don't. But a good endpoint protection product is going to give you a level of protection, a significant level of protection against this kind of attack. And it has several levels at which it can block it. Then the third P is preach. We've seen how much of the infection comes from people clicking on things they shouldn't click. So we have to educate our employees continuously to improve their ability to spot things they're not supposed to click on. And finally, prepare. If you've got a good, tested backup and recovery system in place, and your files get encrypted by ransomware, you can restore your files from the backup, and you don't have to pay the ransom.
Let's patch. Let's prepare,
patch,
protect,
patch,
and preach.
Patch, protect, patch, protect, preach, and prepare. I haven't patented
preach,
that yet. So
anybody seems like a big one, right? Because that user education seems like it's the end user education seems like it's very important, but sometimes missed.
Yeah, and I'll just put a quick plug in here for ESET's free cyber training. So if you go to eset.com/cybertraining, companies can sign employees up for an hour and a half of free security awareness training there, because we just have to get this training out to people, and it does work over time.
Stephen, it seems like every time we have a new threat or a new kind of threat, and even data breaches that come up and bubble up in the news headlines, everybody that advocates on behalf of the security industry and folks that are security experts keep talking about patching. Why is patching such a difficult thing to manage within an organization? Or maybe it isn't, and it's just something that's overlooked.
Well, yeah, so I think, we always, after a big security scare like WannaCrypta, there's this kind of victim blaming thing. Oh, you should have patched, and yes, you should have patched, but people have to realize you can't, in a large organization, just roll out a patch to the operating system without testing it first. And what WannaCrypta did, if it did something good, was to show all the different reasons why people weren't patched. Some large organizations were in the process of patching. They'd been testing the patch. Other organizations were using old equipment for which a patch wasn't immediately available. And there's a large section of the world that's using bootleg operating system software and old operating system software. There's another section of patch problems around medical equipment. And Lisser's written around about this, where you've got a piece of medical equipment might be running Windows XP, but you can't fix it or patch it without going through a re-certification of the equipment. So I mean, we have to draw a balance really between preaching at people to patch, but yeah, understanding that the whole patch approach to this is weak in some ways, and as Alexei will tell you, it only takes one unpatched system in a network potentially for some kinds of infection to get in there.
Yeah, and with that, let's take a look at the results of the poll question. Very small number got hit with WannaCry or WannaCrypt, and I'm trying to think of the last statistic that I saw on WannaCry. It impacted globally. I use the word "only" pretty loosely here, but it impacted a couple 100,000 machines, I think, maybe a little bit more. Or are we? Am I way off? Anybody know?
No,
Stephen.
Yeah, I think between 200 and 300,000 is the last number I saw, which is as we were talking about botnets earlier, some botnets have reached 1 million infections.
Right.
So, but I think this was one which just captured the headlines because it was demanding money.
That's right, and I know
quickly.
it was a significant issue for some healthcare organizations in the UK, causing a significant disruption to patient to systems at some medical facilities there. And certainly, if we ask the question, "Have you been hit by ransomware?" We might come up with a different, just a broader question like that. We might come up with a different answer because I know from the calls that I get. That frequently involves getting hit with multiple ransomware infections over time. And Lissa, let's bring you back in here with regards to ransomware. Before I ask the question that's on the screen, the one thing that does come up is whether you should pay the ransom or not. Are there certain guidelines around that, and are along with the question that's on the screen, are enterprises actually paying the ransom that we know of, if they are at risk? Backed into the question there.
I was kind of surprised by the answer.
I mean?
Yeah. I think the answer to that surprised me. I thought that businesses are usually pretty good about taking backups because they protect against a variety of different problems. But the thing is that some administrators were finding it less expensive to just pay the ransom, which is awful for a variety of reasons, not least of which is that they're encouraging more criminal behavior. And once somebody knows that you are an easy mark, they will come back. It's not that, if you pay once, they will go away forever. It will be, oh, okay, this guy has paid us, and so we'll come back again and again and keep trying this until he figures out that, take some backups and prevent the problem in the first place. But they aren't necessarily doing this in a targeted way. They tend to be doing it in a scattershot sort of approach, and so they don't necessarily see what the value is of that database. So I'm hearing instances where, say, a bank, they will encrypt a database that is worth millions of dollars and then asking for 600 or something along those lines. And it's like, it seems like for them a no-brainer, just pay the few $100 and go on about your business. But, there's no guarantee that they will actually decrypt your files. There's a lot of instances I've heard. I've heard numbers as high as like 30% are either the decryptor doesn't work, or they don't ever get it, or some sort of other problem in terms of, like the ransom note never actually appears on their screen, so there isn't any place for them to send or find out where to send the money. So the short, too late for the short answer, but anyway, yes, everyone is being hit from people at home, small businesses, large businesses, very indiscriminately. There is not like they're going after one type of business or one size of business and rather than another. It's just they're going until that, their financial needs are met, I guess. I mean, while there's still money to be made, they will keep doing it, and they will just keep ratcheting up the amount of money until they realize, they stop realizing the kind of financial potential.
Yeah, I was invited to attend a meeting of the healthcare ISAC, which is the information sharing group that shares issues on threats. And the topic of discussion was ransomware. It was here in the U.S., so it involved the FBI. They gave a presentation. Law enforcement are pretty adamant about not paying the ransom, but when the question was asked to the audience as to whether they paid, their organization paid a ransom, some hands did go up, and I assume that it would depend on the industry. In the case of healthcare, they have to balance security with patient care, so that could be an issue. Couldn't it? Yeah. Stephen, any other thoughts? I'm bringing you back in. Any other thoughts on ransomware? I'm just curious if you think we're going to see more of this kind of activity, or if it may have reached its peak with WannaCry.
No, it hasn't reached its peak yet. No, I think Alyssa is entirely correct. They'll just keep going until this runs out, and it's a reminder that there's a huge industrial scale crime machine out there. It's not it's not slick and cool looking like a machine. It's a lot of different people in a lot of different countries, but it is it's making money with ransomware, and it's very low risk crime to commit. The chances of you getting caught and prosecuted are very small. So I think it's going to continue, unfortunately.